All right. Happy Saturday, everyone. Welcome to the annual Kiowa Women's Club Candidate Forum for our POA Board of Directors. We are delighted tonight to have our 6 candidates with us in tow, and we want to welcome everyone who is here via YouTube. This is quite different for us. I am not a technology person, so bear with me, but fortunately we have our queen of technology back taking care of us. The soon-to-be Dr. Doherty is handling things from that end, and we want to say a big thank you to Leanne and to her communications team for making this possible. We have Julie Hoy, our KWC president this year, who is going to be our timer tonight. And she, along with the rest of the KWC women, want to thank you for joining us tonight on this important event. I would like to let you in the audience know who our candidate forum committee members were. I was the chair this year, Julie Hoyt, of course, Jerry Slater, who's the chair of the nominations committee, also was on the candidate forum committee. And then we had the joy of having Lori Brindle and Leslie McElroy to help lead and guide us as well. So we want to thank them all tonight for guiding us through this process. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have 4 rounds this evening, and the candidates will each answer a slate of questions. Round number 1 that we're about to start, we're going to go in order of the ballot. Candidate 1 through 6 will be answering. And during this time, they will have 3 minutes with which to give you an introductory biography of themselves. Each candidate will also answer the following questions during this brief round. How long have you lived in Lake Kiowa? What has been your level of involvement here at Lake Kiowa? And what are your experiences that will enable you to be a contributing member or a contributing board member if you are elected? And for this, we're going to go in order of the ballot. So candidate number 1, Tom Sledge, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Hi, I'm Tom Sledge. I've lived in Lake Kiowa now for a little over 2.5 years. My wife and I, Sherry, moved here with our daughter. My daughter's a senior at Callisburg this year, so she'll graduate. I'm a native Texan, got my bachelor's at Stephen F. Austin. After college, I went into the Air Force, worked a drug dog for the Security Police Squadron in Colorado Springs. We moved to Lake Kiowa because I accepted the CEO role at North Texas Medical Center. And it's really been a blessing to lead the rebirth of the hospital in both the quality of care and the financial situation of the hospital. Plus, moving to Kiowa was kind of like a homecoming of sorts for us. We had lived in Hideaway Lake, north of Tyler, Texas for 9 years, and the communities are very much alike. So we really like that. As far as what I've done in the community in my short time here, really, it's not been so much as being a part of committees. It's been just a lot of the social gatherings that I've met a lot of friends at, obviously the MGA. And as far as the only committee I've really assisted with is for the folks that are responding to the COVID pandemic, giving some advice and assistance just due to my job. It made a logical choice there. I'm running for the POA board because I was nominated by several individuals, and I enjoy being a part of something and giving back to the community that I love. My experiences in my personal life and in my work, I think, make me a really good candidate for the board. The time I served in the Air Force just reinstilled the values that my parents instilled in me. A strong work ethic is expected of you. You really just need to be respectful to others and do more than you're asked. If you do those things, you'll be rewarded in kind. My job really demands that I make tough decisions on a daily basis. So I try to gather as much information as I can to make those types of decisions, because I know if you don't make a good informed decision, you're going to make some less than optimal choices. So I would do my best to educate myself on all the matters of Kiowa and make the best decisions for the community.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. Now we'll go on with the same question, your introductory. Candidate number 2, John Roach. And John, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Roach. My wife, Mary, and I moved to Lake Kiowa on September 1st, 2017 from Plano, where we had lived for 44 years. My professional career has been in the law. I have been an assistant district attorney in Dallas, in the private practice of law, a Texas state district judge for 18 years, a justice on the Texas Court of Appeals at Dallas, and I served as a district attorney in Collin County for 8 years. As DA, I managed to supervise 114 prosecutors, investigators, and support staff while administering a nearly $10 million budget. During my career, I have been heavily involved in professional, civic, charitable, and faith-related activities that are especially relevant to my potential service on the board of directors. For 18 years as district judge, I served as the local administrative judge for the district courts in Collin County, as chairman of the board of district judges, as chairman of the Collin County Purchasing Board, and as chairman of the Collin County Juvenile Board for all those 18 years. As a district judge, I authorized and supported the court-appointed special advocate program in Collin County, served CASA as a trainer, and received its Founders Award. Along with 8 others, I am a founding director of the Collin County Christian Prayer Breakfast, Inc. I served on its board from its inception in 1999 until my retirement from public life, and I served as board president for 2 years. I served on the board of trustees of the First United Methodist Church of Plano for 3 years, 2 years as board president. I've been involved with the Great Plains District Circle 10 Council of the Boy Scouts, where I served as an advisory board member and later as chairman of its nominating committee. One of my sons and one of his sons are Eagle Scouts. For 8 years, I was a board member of the Children's Advocacy Center of Collin County and served for 2 years on the board of the Samaritan Inn in McKinney. I have been a PTO president, a board member of the Boys and Girls Club of McKinney, and an advisory board member of the United Way of McKinney. I also served for several years on the board of the Plano Symphony Orchestra. I currently serve on the Safety and Security Committee here. I'm in my 3rd year, and recently served as chairman of an ad hoc search committee for legal counsel to succeed Leslie Sweet on his retirement from that position. I decided to run for the board only after much thought. In fact, my original inclination was not to run. When I was asked to interview with the nominating committee, I agreed. And in the meantime, I determined that my experience with nonprofits and with public service would be something that I could offer and would benefit the membership if elected. So I was pleased to be nominated and considered an honor to have this opportunity, for which I thank the nominating committee.
Okay, thank you, John. Now we'll move on to candidate 3, Nancy Jackson. And Nancy, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Nancy Jackson, and I've lived at Lake Kiowa for 1.5 years. Although I feel like I've lived here longer, it took me about 3 years looking for the right house, and I found that on the golf course. It's interesting when you think about all the different reasons that you're here, but it's really because of the people that are here at Lake Kiowa that brought me here. In fact, they're the volunteers that I get to work with as the community director of community development for Home Hospice. I'm currently employed there. I work out of both Gainesville and Sherman. Our office is there. We're the only nonprofit hospice and palliative care organization in the area. And so I get that opportunity to see the nonprofit side of corporate America, if you will. I'm responsible for all the operational side of the healthcare organization. So that's communications, it's community outreach, it's marketing, grant writing, fundraising, advertising, our new bereavement center, and our new resale store that we're going to open in Gainesville a little bit later this spring. I've been very fortunate to have a very varied career, if you will. I've been the associate director for the Oklahoma Small Business Development Centers out of Durant and travel the state of Oklahoma. I've also had the opportunity to be in senior leadership at Target in distribution and logistics. And I was the director of operations for Blockbuster at one point in time, as well as an adjunct faculty member for 20 years for area universities. I think one of the things that helps me when I say that I would like to serve on the board is that for 20 years, I spent in leadership positions for the Business and Professional Women's Organization and served as the from the local level in Dallas, in local level officers and president to the state level, and then as the national president. It was a 17,000 member organization. And so that gives you a lot of opportunity to dwell into bylaws and policies and procedures, but even more so in relationships and how you work as a member organization. I'm a member currently of the Long Range Planning Committee for Lake Kiowa. I'm also a member of the Kiowa Women's Club, and I'm the co-chair of the Scholarship Fund this year. And I'm also a member of the WGA. And like many people, I don't get enough opportunity to go out and play golf, but that would be one of my goals, to be able to do that. If I look at all the different things that I've done in my career, it's my opportunity to serve Lake Kiowa, and that's why I would like to serve on the board.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. We appreciate it. Okay, now we'll go on to candidate number 4, Mr. Pete Mason. You have 3 minutes, Pete.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Ever since I moved here with my wife, Cheryl, in 2013, we've been very involved in the community. I had the pleasure of serving on the board for the years 2016, 17, and 18. At that time, I was the secretary for 2016 and 2017. I was given the task, if you will, by Dan Bush, the president at that time, of strategizing how to sell lots that we had, excess lots that we had out here at Lake Kiowa. And so over the next year and a half, I put together a plan, and we ended up selling nearly 90 lots, which provided funding for the patio, extension on the patio out there, as well as the lodge renovation that took place. So quite involved with all that. I also, as a board member, submitted a motion to my fellow board members that was eventually agreed to, and which brought signage, the street signage, to Lake Kiowa. That's the little black signs, black and white signs in your front yard. So I was part of bringing that to fruition. Currently, I am on the Lodge and Tavern Committee. I have been chairman of the Long Range Planning Committee, chairman of the Architectural Control, as well as chairman of the Lakes and Park Committee. We are currently, my wife and I are both CASA members. As John was talking about CASA earlier, we are court-appointed special advocates for Gainesville and for Collin County, or Cook County, excuse me. We are both members of the MGA, WGA, FOLK, and the Anglers Club. I decided to run because I believe that we need fiscal responsibility on this board, dedicated members, and I just believe that my past experiences will be very beneficial with leadership and guidance for the current board and the future board, providing financial accountability as a board member. And that is the reason why I elected to step up and run again. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Pete. Okay, now we will move to candidate number 5, Mr. Steve Davis. And Steve, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, MJ. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve Davis, and give you a little bit of background, education, and employment-wise. I graduated from a little place called Jal High School in Jal, New Mexico. Not jail, Jal. Went to college at West Texas State University when it was still that, and got a bachelor's degree in nursing. After that, I recovered open heart surgeries for about 3 or 4 years. And then my mother was going to nursing school at a little community college in Hobbs and told me there was a job available. So I applied and I got hired as a nursing instructor, and I did that for 16 years. And I guess I did that well enough that they promoted me to the director of allied health field. So I was over all the allied health programs at the college. And I guess I did that okay. For after 4 years of that, they hired me as the Dean of Business and Technology, where I was over such programs as cosmetology, welding, automotive technology, computer science, business, but then I also had all the allied health programs. Well, I did that for 4 years. And in New Mexico, after 25 years, you can retire with full benefits for the rest of your life, no matter how old you are. So I retired at 48. And my wife and I were thinking, where do we want to go? Well, we bought some land here. My son graduated from Pilot Point in 1990, and we bought some land here in 94. And I showed my parents the place in 94, and they bought a house here. So anyway, we moved down here in 2003 after we retired. So I've been here for 17 years. She said she couldn't stand twice the husband at half the pay. So she told me to find something else to do. So I did clinical nursing for 3 colleges for a year, and they nearly killed me. And so I told them that one of them had to hire me. So finally, Grayson College hired me as the Dean of Business and Technology, or Workforce Education. And I was over 26 different programs there. And Tom, I heard you say something about your criminal justice degree. Well, I was over the criminal justice program and police academy, as well as a lot of other programs. As far as committees I've been on, I really haven't been on any. I was working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 5 and 6 days a week, doing clinicals and nursing and those type of things. So when I got home, I'd usually just drop down a chair and not do a whole lot. I decided to run for the board because I had a number of people come call me and personally ask, would I please do so? They think I might have some skills that would be beneficial in regards to being on the board. And I guess those skills would be such things as I have worked because of my position as dean. I've engaged in personnel issues. I have lots of budget preparation and management experience. I also have tremendous experience with grants. Over the years at Grayson College, I've probably written about $12 million worth of grants. I have tremendous experience with construction projects. I've built as small as $2 or $3 million buildings up to $20 million facilities. So I think those skills, and again, I think I also have fiduciary management skills, and I think we should all be good stewards of the money that you give us. And so that's why I'd like to run for the board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. All right, and now to candidate number 6, Mr. Corky Cahoon. And Corky, you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Corky, can you unmute? There.
I did. Okay, thank you. Janelle and I have been here for 25 years at Kiowa, and I've been to most of the board meetings since 2007, and I've been on over 15 POA committees. I served on the board back in 2009 to 2012. I've also chaired 5 committees for multiple years, including right now. And I belong to several groups, including American Legion, Anglers, Folk, MGA, and other things. My professional job was as a senior military civilian, as a mobile senior civilian, working with the Department of Defense's Army and Air Force Exchange Service, where I've served in various positions as the chief of planning. And also most of my time in the field. We spent 10 years overseas. Our motto was, we go where the troops go. And so I traveled all over the world. My wife got to move about 13 times as we moved around, and then I would go from there. My desire to run for the board was really based on, I was asked to be interviewed by the nominating committee, and I accepted that. I'm mostly concerned right now with the pandemic, the loss, the pain that we're going through. Many people have lost their jobs. I don't think it's time to really expand a whole bunch until we start recovering both economically and emotionally. And I just want to say that I had a lot of experience with the military, made a lot of plans, done a lot of the type of work that we do here as far as running communities, military communities, And that's about it.
Okay, thank you so much, Corky. We appreciate each and every one of our candidates. So far, we have finished round one. Now we're about to move on to round two. In round two, we will go in reverse order. And the candidates were each given a slate of 6 questions with which to choose one question in particular that they wanted to respond to. So in this round, they will each have 2 minutes to respond to the question of their choice. And I will read their question. And I do want to thank the community at large, and especially to the Forum Committee who helped us devise these questions. So we are going to go in reverse order. So Corky Cahoon is candidate number 6, and he will begin this round. Now then, Corky has chosen the following question. In March of 2020, the members passed a spending limit on the board's ability to approve discretionary projects more than $400,000. At the same time, a restricted lake management reserve fund was also approved. Do you think the Lake Management Reserve should be considered a discretionary project requiring a second vote if the contract exceeds $400,000? Or do you believe the LMRF is adequately restricted and should be exempt from a second vote to spend funds? And Corky, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. No, I don't believe it needs a second vote. The Lake Management Reserve Fund, as you indicated, was set up as a restricted reserve fund, which means that the board cannot take away, can't borrow, can't repurpose that money. That money is set in a separate fund just for the lake management. And I think when the people voted for that, and the majority of the people that voted to approve that Lake Management Reserve Fund, that's the $12.50 fund that started in July, primarily for silt removal. So I think that the people that voted for it expect that we spend that money wisely, and discretionary projects were that 703Q, the one that came from a bunch of members that signed a petition, was for the funds that funded like the pavilion and the lodge interior and other projects that were from discretionary reserve funds. We have 2 types of reserve funds within the POA. When they voted on that, we had one restricted fund, and that was the ARF, the Asset Replacement Reserve Fund, and that was excluded from the 400,000. Now we have a second restricted reserve fund. So the other 2 reserve funds that come out of CARF and CDRF would be included in the $400,000 limitation. But no, I don't think the LMFRF, the Lake Management Fund, should be required to have a second vote.
Okay, thank you so much, Corky. Okay, our next question will be for candidate number 5. Steve Davis has chosen to respond to the following. The Long Range Planning Committee have projects identified for improvements to our community. 3 of those include improvements to the guardhouse and entry, a fitness center, and improvement and repairs to the outside of the lodge. Do you agree with the above 3 items? And would you suggest or focus on anything different? And Steve, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I agree with some and I disagree with some. In regards to those 3 items, let's start off first with the guardhouse, the entry. I use the east entry because we live over here on the east side, and it has a tremendous amount of traffic. So yes, I do agree that something needs to be done in regards to the automated entry on the east side. The gates are a little bit slow and they're outdated, and some things need to be done as far as helping people get in and out faster. As far as the guardhouse, if any of you have been in there lately, if there's more than 2 or 3 people in there at one time, it's kind of like a small kitchen. You can't really turn around without bumping into each other. So yes, I do agree that something needs to be done with the guardhouse. As far as a fitness center, I know that was part of one of the things that came up on the survey that has been sent out every so often. I have a little problem with the fitness center personally. I've seen fitness centers that have been put in at colleges for the employees and whatnot, kind of like child care centers and those type of things as a community service or a service for the employees. And eventually they start out, everybody using them a whole lot, but then they eventually kind of die down and go away. And there's also the cost of running the thing and whatnot. And as far as improvements and repairs to the outside of the lodge, I'd have to see what those were going to be, how much it would cost. I think we maybe got a little out of hand on the pavilion. It got way above what people thought the budget should be, and even with the reverse engineering and whatnot to try to get the cost down. So I think there would have to be really some looking at the improvements or repairs to the outside of the lodge. If I would suggest focusing on anything different, I've heard a lot of people talk to me about the roads out here. That is something that everybody out here uses. It's not selective for any one group or individual. So yes, I think we should maybe focus a little bit more on the infrastructure of Lake Kiowa rather than some of these other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, now then we go on to candidate number 3. Nancy Jackson has chosen the following question. Lake Kiowa POA owns a parcel of land next to the driving range, 50+ acres. The current long-range planning and the land and parks committees are taking a master plan approach to developing this acreage to meet and/or enhance the quality of life of Lake Kiowa members. What do you feel would be the best use of this land? And you have 2 minutes, Nancy.
Thank you. Personally, I like to use the land to create more outdoor activities and more areas for health. I think Corky hit it very well, is the fact that emotionally, a lot of people are very spent with not being able to connect with people. And I think health is not only just physical, but it's also emotional. And I know getting outside and being able to do activities together and gathering on things makes a huge difference. And so, you know, as a golfer, it'd be great to have additional golf course or training areas or things like that. But I also think that using something from a multi-use approach is actually very good for the community, because it could be leveraged in many ways, whether it's games, concerts, fitness, gatherings, and things like that. And it would allow you to do things, even looking at a dog park or adding to the gardens or anything like that. But I certainly wouldn't sell it or put just a few homes, as I've seen some people talk about that. There are some really cool ideas that are out there that came from prior board projects. And I know that we have the member survey that's about to happen for 2021. And I think that's a good opportunity for people to put their ideas out there. And so that you're helping guide the board as they put together the master plan. Another thing to consider is the fact that how do we help people age in place in this community? You know, most of us moved here not to necessarily move again. And so is there a way that we can leverage that piece of property or other pieces of property, in fact, to help us create more of a community for people that want to stay, but maybe can't continue to stay in their homes or things like that. So I think we have to look at different things to do for the future for our community. So I personally am an advocate for a master plan and really deciding, it doesn't have to be that you build it tomorrow, but at least you know where you're going to go for the future.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And I apologize. I skipped candidate number 4, Pete Mason. I'm so sorry. Okay, Pete will be answering the following question. In March of 2020, the members passed a spending limit on the board's ability to approve discretionary projects more than $400,000. At the same time, a restricted lake management reserve fund was also approved. Do you think the lake management reserve should be considered a discretionary project requiring a second vote if the contract exceeds $400,000? Or do you believe that LMRF is adequately restricted and should be exempt from a second vote to spend funds? And Pete, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, the community voted and to put the $400,000 cap in place. And I firmly believe that we need to be fiscally responsible to their desires at this point in time. And the majority of the folks said that's what they want. We should not sidestep this requirement. And any of the funds for any of the reserve funds that we have, we should not be sidestepping this issue. The community, the majority of the community voted and said that they wanted a $400,000 cap. I think we need to, like I said, be responsible to our citizenship, to our members out here. Unless it's an emergency situation, yes, then you have to make a move and make decisions otherwise. So personally, I believe in this situation, we need to be responsible to what the people want, and that it needs to, if it is a bid over $400,000, excuse me, a bid over $400,000, then there should be a second vote. And so I do disagree with Corky, but we are welcome to have our opinions. So, but I think it boils down to what the people have requested.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Pete. Okay, now we're going to move on to candidate number 2, John Roach, who has chosen the same question. In March of 2020, the members passed a spending limit on the board's ability to approve discretionary projects more than $400,000. At the same time, a restricted lake management reserve fund was also approved. Do you think the lake management reserve should be considered a discretionary project requiring the second vote if the contract exceeds $400,000? Or do you believe that the LMRF is adequately restricted and should be exempt from a second vote? 2 minutes, please, John.
All right, thank you. The fund, in my opinion, the creation of it and the limitation ballot proposal that passed on discretionary projects have nothing to do with each other. The fact they coincided in they neither has anything to do with the other, neither is dependent on the other. In my view, the discretionary limitation requiring a vote of the members applies to all discretionary projects, regardless of how that project is funded, as long as it's POA funds. I agree with Pete in that regard and disagree with Corky. I think the language in the proposal that passed is perfectly clear. If a project is discretionary but does not cost more than $400,000, the limitation won't apply. If it costs more than $400,000 but it's mandatory and not discretionary, the $400,000 limitation won't apply. A prime example of this will be what must be done to the dam under the mandate of the state of Texas. To the extent that we'd have to expend money to meet that mandate, that would not be a discretionary matter, and I don't think it would apply in that regard. The Lake Management Reserve Fund is a management fund. One could certainly make the argument that maintenance is never discretionary, that if you do not maintain an asset, you will lose it. You may have a choice about when you wish to or decide to perform a function, but whether the function is performed or not bears directly in this situation with whether or not the asset will continue to exist. For example, if you wanted to dredge the low water crossing number 2, that could be a project that costs less than $400,000 and doesn't require any kind of a vote, and arguably is not really a project at all, but is actually a maintenance procedure that's being done. One could do that for each cove in turn until the entire dredging program were completed. What I'm saying, though, is that other than the matters that I've mentioned, if it's in any fund of the POA, is subject to that $400,000 limitation.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. We appreciate your response. Now to our final candidate in round 2. Candidate number 1, Tom Sledge, has chosen the following question. The Long Range Planning Committee have projects identified for improvements to our community. 3 of these items include the improvements to the guardhouse and entry, a fitness center, and improvements and repairs to the outside of the lodge. Do you agree with the above 3 items? And what would you suggest or focus on anything differently? And Tom, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm going to sound like I've copied Steve's notes. we chose the same question, and most of what I'm going to say is going to echo what Steve said. The guardhouse and the entry into Lake Kiowa is the first thing that people see. It makes a huge impact. And I agree, as I went in there multiple times when I first came here to get my the entry stickers and that sort of thing. It is extremely cramped in there. They do need some sort of relief. It needs to be worked out better. And once again, it's just it's not the impact that you would expect from a community like this to have when you come up to it. Obviously, with the oversight of the board and the spending limits, what would happen? I would say the same thing about the lodge, almost identical what I said about the entry. We have a beautiful lodge on the inside. The exterior from the front is a slab. So I don't think it would take a massive overhaul, but with prudent spending and prudent design, I think you could make some changes to that would give it a lot more impact. Everybody sees it. It is the main focus of Lake Kiowa. So I think it's worthy. Once again, echoing Steve, while a fitness center would be nice, and I know a lot of people would use it, they do tend to have that initial rush, and then the impact wears off, and the machinery gets old and has to be replaced. And not only that, there is some liability concerns with a workout facility as well that you would need to consider, and possibly even staffing of it. So that's an additional expense. So I don't know that I would focus there, but where Steve and I dead on a line is the safety of our roads and the infrastructure. Definitely need to be improved. There are places where mailboxes, you can't drive by a car without your mailbox, without your rearview mirror touching the mailbox almost, and that shouldn't be that way. So we definitely need to look at our infrastructure.
Okay, thank you so much. That concludes round 2 for our candidates tonight. Again, I want to reach out to and say thank you to all of our YouTube attendees. We appreciate your participation tonight. There will be information forthcoming about e-voting. And just to give you a brief update, you should receive, all members will receive an email on February 1st. If you have not received something by February 2nd, please check your spam, please check your junk. And then if not, we will give you directions later on for you to contact the POA to make sure that you do have your link to vote. That is going to be very important. Each member will have one vote, and that will happen from February 1st through March 1st, midnight at night on both days. So midnight on the morning of February 1st to midnight on the night of March the 1st. So now we're going to go on to number 2, round number 3, and that is where we're going to, we drew randomly right before our meeting tonight, before the forum. And so we have some different questions for our candidates to answer. We are going to go in a little bit different order tonight on round number 3. Our first candidate is going to be Pete Mason, candidate number 4. And he's going to respond to the following question. What are your thoughts on the Lake Kiowa POA board, committees, staff, funding and facilitating events at the Lodge and Pavilion that create more activities and sense of community? And Pete, you have 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. As a current Lodge and Tavern Committee member, I've seen several recent actions that are affecting activities at the Lodge. The FOL has reorganized into the FOLK, which is more focused on lake activities and other such things rather than the Lodge itself. The Lodge manager position has been restructured, and we also have no event planner position at this time. I personally do not believe that any one of our board members has the expertise, nor they don't have the expertise for the Lodge and Pavilion planning those events, and they shouldn't be expected to volunteer as a board member and then to be an event planner for the community through the lodge and the pavilion. The lodge, excuse me, lodge assistant managers need to be focused on running the lodge and not planning events and working towards those things. We need to budget for an event planner and hire a qualified individual for that position to create all of these plans and bring them through to fruition. Our board members do not have that expertise, and they shouldn't be asked to do it. So that's my opinion on it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pete. Now then, we'll go on to candidate number 5, Steve Davis. And Steve is going to answer the same question. What are your thoughts on the Lake Kiowa POA board, committees, and staff funding and facilitating events at the lodge and pavilion that create more activities and sense of community? And Steve, you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Well, I grew up in a town with about the same population as Lake Kiowa has. And so I have a great sense of community in regards to smaller living environments like we have here. And as far as the board, the committees, and the staff funding and facilitating events, in the years that I've been out here, I've noticed that there are an awful lot of events already occurring that are being conducted by the different committees or by the different organizations or groups or clubs. I know the anglers have their fish fry, and the fire department has their fundraising, and the Kiwanis have theirs, and the MGA has theirs, the WGA. I mean, there's so many things going on. There's hardly a week that goes by that there's not some type of activity being put on by some different entity or group within Lake Kiowa. So I'm not sure how many more we would want to plan or put into our calendar or our schedule, although I would like to see that new pavilion used as heavily as possible. I do agree with Pete that if that's something that the board deems that they want to do and be more active as far as the community and create that sense thereof, then yes, we do need to hire an event planner of some sort. I've worked with those individuals before, and yes, Pete, they definitely have expertise that we do not have. They also would have the time that many of us do not have, because if any of you have ever put on events or used event planners, there is a tremendous amount of time and effort, energy, and funding that may go into some of these that we need to be very careful with. So that's kind of how I feel about that activity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, now we'll move on to candidate number 6, Corky Cahoon. And Corky drew the following question. If you were going to change one thing at Lake Kiowa, what would it be? Corky, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, to be honest, I don't have an agenda to change Lake Kiowa. I have just the opposite. I want to keep Kiowa the rural jewel that we've been for over 50 years. Now, we have some areas I'd like to improve upon, and that's the safety and health, some of those things that Nancy had mentioned. And I'll add one more, that we need to make an effort to keep our fire department well funded and either on or next to Lake Kiowa, as we're a senior community and we need to keep them in operation and up to date. Also, as some of you said about our roads are obviously too narrow. We don't have the funds to enlarge the roads, but certainly we could make, if you drive out in the morning, you'll pass several walkers, and those walkers, are relatively in a dangerous situation. So I would create some more walking paths in places like Low Water Crossing 2 and East Beach, where you can get off the road and possibly walk a half mile off the road before you get back on it. And a third thing that bothers me in terms of safety is all the contractors parking on the roads, some of them 4, 5, 6 cars or trucks deep. And I think we need to come up with a master plan to come up with some areas for them to park if they can and walk to their site where they're working. A lot of them are painters, etc., and they can do that. So that would be the things that I would like to change.
Okay, thank you so much, Corky. Okay, our next candidate will be candidate number 1, Tom Sledge, and Tom drew the following question. What are your thoughts regarding creative fundraising possibilities to help fund amenity improvements that will accommodate our growing community? And Tom, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think it's a good idea, as long as the creative ideas don't become intrusive on people who might not want to participate. Things along this line that I think of are if we talk about adding another more holes to where the current driving range is for more golf, offering folks to name a hole after themselves in memory of somebody for a certain type of donation. Those sorts of things I'm fine with. What I'm not fine with is, like I said, when it becomes intrusive, where people are basically being hounded to donate, and that sort of thing. It should be totally up to those people who want to donate for those creative ideas.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. All right, our next candidate will be Mr. John Roach, and he will answer the following question. If you were going to change one thing at Lake Kiowa, what would it be, John? And John, you have 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. Big picture, I wouldn't change anything at all. My family moved to Lake Kiowa like almost everyone else did for a reason, because Lake Kiowa is Lake Kiowa, and I would like to keep it that way. I think, though, that we will have to do some change of emphasis on some of what we do in order to maintain that very quality about Lake Kiowa that we like so much. I think we're really going to be shifting from growth and its issues to less growth in its issues, which involve a number of things, particularly the creation of new amenities, the enhancement of current amenities, and to just overall do what we've been doing and do it better, to protect our values, to protect our community, to protect each other, and to protect all of us, our investment that we each have in the community. I'm talking about the financial investment, not just the investment of the heart. Inside that big picture, those things can be dealt with, but the big picture, as I agree with Corky, is that I wouldn't change what Lake Kiowa is at all, not its essence.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much, John. Now then, our last candidate in this round will be Nancy Jackson, candidate number 3, and she will answer the same question. If you were going to change one thing at Lake Kiowa, what would it be?
I'm just like a broken record here with everybody else. Personally, there is nothing I would change from a Lake Kiowa perspective. I mean, that's the reason I moved here. But change is going to happen. I mean, we changed in 2020 as a community from where we were before all of our COVID restrictions went into place. We were an organization that was able to fund the things that we wanted to do, deliver on the things that we wanted to do, and I do believe we're going to be challenged for the future in how we continue to maintain that. But going forward, I would continue to, or I would come back from 2020, if you will, and change the activities and things that we do. I do realize that it is a challenge sometimes for people to organize an event. And I agree with Steve, there were tons of events going on before we pre-COVID, if you will, that people could get out and they could participate and they could do different things, and that kept people socially active, and they had lots of opportunities, whether they wanted to support something or not. They had lots of choices. And so I think that's where we have to continue to change and look for, whether that's the POA stepping in and maybe pulling together some special social themed events at the lodge, or I think people talk about that being sold out events before, or if it's coming out with new ways to use the pavilion or other areas that we have. I think we have to continue to change to grow as we support what we have. And for me, it's that sense of community and support that you get from the membership that are here, as well as from the staff. And I think we have to continue to change to support the staff and all that they're doing for us too.
Okay, terrific. This completes the third round of our forum, and now we'll move on to our fourth and final round of the 2021 KWC Candidate Forum. In this round, we will go in order of the ballot. So candidate 1 through 6. Each of our candidates will be answering the same basic question, and they will each have 2 minutes to respond. Candidates, if you are elected as a board member, what would you say is your top priority or objective? You will have 2 minutes. And we'll start with candidate number 1, Tom Sledge.
All right, so a lot of people have talked about the growth that we've had over the past several years, or even going back further than that. Hearing Pete talk about them trying to force lots to give them away, or not give them away, but have them sold, is such a dramatic situation than what we have right now. If you look, I think there are 5 total houses for sale in Kiowa right now. Nothing's available. There's everything is snapped up as soon as it comes out. We have more people here now because during the pandemic, people moved out and made this not their lake home, but their permanent home. More use and wear on every amenity that we have. It's continual. It's almost like you can see it wearing down in front of your eyes with as much use as getting it. So my number 1 priority is to make sure that we keep an eye to the infrastructure and the maintenance of everything that we have now. It would be my top priority because if we don't keep an eye on it and we don't focus our resources on that, 10 years from now, we'll be in a world of hurt when it comes time to all of a sudden pay for all of it at once. So that would be my top priority.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And now, same question, your top priority, candidate number 2, John Roach, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I believe it's my answer would be very similar to the one I gave to my previous question that was asked of me. Protecting what we have here at Lake Kiowa would be a very top priority for me, and increasing its value to its members. I want to protect our values as a community, our lifestyle, our amenities, as I said earlier, each other. But at the same time, a priority must be preparing for and adapting to and managing the future, which I believe will be significantly different than what it has been in the past 50 years or so, with, as I alluded to earlier, an emphasis more on where we are than in where we're going in terms of growth. We must anticipate. We must recognize that we're going to have wear and tear on our amenities. We're going to have things we want, things we need to do. We need to have an overarching theme, which to my view pretty much is in protecting the investment of every single one of us out here. Our property is for most of us, is our greatest investment. And I think it's our responsibility to each other, and I think for the members of the board, to protect that investment and to see to it that the reason we're here in Lake Kiowa continues to be a reason to stay in Lake Kiowa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. And now candidate number 3, Nancy Jackson, the same question, your top priority if you were elected, and you will have 2 minutes, Nancy.
My personal top priority is to listen. I want to hear from our members and our staff and what they think our top priorities are. I think you have to listen as a board member, whether that's in a focus group, a POA meeting, a club event, or even individually on the golf course, wherever it is. I think you have to ask questions and learn more about what we're doing operationally and also what members value. Because if not, we really can't care for our future and do the things that add value and support people. As a community, I believe our top priority is really to ensure that we have the operational systems to support what's needed. If we want a community that continues to add value, as John said, we have to be able to look to see, do we need service upgrades? And we can't be afraid to change. With the master plan, it helps you make a decision. Is it project A or project B that you want to do? And which one really helps us build a bigger foundation for where we go in the next steps. So for me, listening to our members, asking questions, working with the POA manager and the staff, I think is really key for me as a board member and other board members too. I'm not afraid of other people's opinions or voicing my own or really working hard for the community because I think that I value the trust that people would place in me as a board member, and I consider it a privilege to serve. And so if I can't serve, if I don't listen. And so for me, that's my top priority. And for the community, I think it's, do we have the operational systems to support what we want to move forward with in the future?
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Now then, we'll move on to candidate number 4, Pete Mason. If elected as a board member, what would you say your top priority or objective will be? And Pete, you have 2 minutes.
My priorities are to provide experience, leadership, and fiscal responsibility to the POA board and our community. I'm very passionate about the community, and I'm tried to be very involved ever since I've been out here. As the other candidates have said, it's critical that we maintain our infrastructure, so we have to pay attention to our roads and to our amenities. And I think we need to be very aware of the changing demographics that are occurring here. We have a lot of younger individuals, families moving in with their kids. We need to be able to provide amenities for those younger people as well as the children. And we need to provide amenities for our current membership. We need to be aware of all of those different issues. And I believe that we can do that, but you have to be looking and you have to be planning down the road for those changes that are going to occur. So that's my pledge, is that my priorities are to think about experience, leadership, and being responsible as a board member for that fiscal spend that is going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pete. And now our next candidate, candidate number 5, Steve Davis. If elected as a board member, what would you say your top priority or objective will be? And Steve, you have 2 minutes.
When I read that question, so many things ran through my mind. I thought, how am I supposed to pick just one? So I settled on 2. The first one is, I really was glad to hear Nancy mention the word trust. My main focus will be on gaining and maintaining the people's trust that as a board member, I'm going to make decisions that are good for Lake Kiowa. I oftentimes have people ask me, are you an MGA member? Are you an Angler Club member? Are you a friend of the lodge? And I tell them, no, I'm a Lake Kiowan. So I want people to know that when I make a decision, it will be based on what we all feel is best consensus-wise for Lake Kiowa. Okay, whether it be for the golf course or the lake or for the lodge or the entryway or whatever, we need to do what's best for Lake Kiowa. Then the second thing that I thought was one of my main focuses would be, I need to be a good steward of the funds that these individuals provide to us out here as far as monthly dues and fees. I don't know about the rest of you, but I just recently paid a property tax bill that was, I thought, fairly large to the Cook County Appraisal District. And we're basically a small city. Lake Kiowa is a small city, just like Gainesville. Matter of fact, we're the second largest city in community in Cook County. Well, we have a disadvantage that other people don't have. In addition to paying property taxes, we have to pay dues in order to keep our facilities and our employees and the infrastructure up. So we as a board must be good stewards of the money that is provided to us. We also, as Pete said, have a lot of people that are on fixed income. My parents are 90 and 85, and I know they're on a fixed income. So we have to start taking a look at how much we're increasing our fees and dues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And now our last candidate, candidate number 6, Corky Cahoon. If elected as a board member, what would you say your top priority or objective will be? Corky, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm kind of going to repeat myself also. I think my goal is to keep Lake Kiowa affordable, the rural jewel that it has been for the last 50 years, and we're tucked away in the countryside away from the hustle and bustle of the major cities and the problems and crime that go with those major metropolitan areas. At the same time, we have to make sure that we're current and grounded in reasonable ideas and make sure that we can afford what our goals are rather than coming up with grandiose plans. I would prefer to grow more along the lines of what COLA is, and to try and keep it under 5% and grow steadily and have a long range plan. Also want to mention again that I think it's very important. Some of you know that the fire department is trying to become like a special utility district or an ESD for the fire department. And they want to become basically a larger fire department with better equipment, et cetera. I certainly support that. I think it's very important that we keep them maybe on our new 52 acres master plan, or allow them to expand where they are and help them as much as possible to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now this completes our 4 rounds of our candidate forum. And on behalf of the Kiowa Women's Club and your community, I want to thank each and every one of you candidates for your preparation tonight, for your participation in tonight's forum, and especially for your dedication to Lake Kiowa and your desire to serve our community. You are all to be commended, and we appreciate you. I want to say a special thank you to all of our YouTube attendees for this year's forum. We want to encourage each of you to take care during this pandemic and practice safe practices to keep you and your neighbors well. We have many in our community fighting this terrible virus right now, and we wish each of you a speedy recovery. I want to again take time to thank this year's nomination committee, forum committee, and especially Leanne Doherty and her communications team for making this important event possible during these uncertain times. Let me remind you that e-voting again will begin on February 1st at 12 a.m. and it will continue through midnight on March 1st. There will be only 1 vote allowed per member. Members will receive an email February 1st to announce the opening of voting with details and a link. If you do not receive this link by February 2nd, check your spam filters and your junk folders. If you did not receive an email from the POA, then you may contact Scott Manning at the POA office. Call the POA office and select option number 2 for Scott. Tonight, I want to thank you again for participation in tonight's forum. Have a good night and stay